This is Debbie, and welcome to another brand new episode of The Offbeat Life, where I speak to inspiring individuals who ditch the norm to live their best life and become location independent. This week, I'm so excited to speak with Elena, who is a full-time traveler and the co-founder of Traveling Bites, a blog where she shares resources, experiences, and opinions about long-term travel. Elena and her husband started their journey like many of us, striving to live the American dream. But one day they woke up and realized that they wanted to do something more. So they left their corporate jobs and started their own business in order to live a nomadic lifestyle while working on the road. Listen on to find out how Elena and her husband left the American dream to do long-term travel. Hey everyone, I'm here with Elena. Hey Elena, how are you?
Hi, Debbie. I'm fine. Thank you.
So before we get to all of your tips and tricks, can you give us a little bit more about your backstory and why you live an offbeat life?
Currently, I am a full-time traveler. My background is probably up until 7 years ago is fairly common. Well, I worked in IT industry in the United States for about 12 years. It was 9 to 5 job. I guess that's what they call American dream. You know, like having a house, having a car, going to the office every day, and became a bit boring, I guess. So in 2010, I quit full-time job and started my own company. Actually, with my husband, we started our own consulting company, and with that came an idea. While we having our own company, why do we need to stay in particular place? Why we cannot move from place to place? Nothing prevents us. So this is how it's all started. And we moved from the East Coast, where we lived for years and years and years. Our first big trip, if you will, was across the United States to Seattle, where we stayed for a year. It was interesting. It was something new. But, like appetite comes with, eating something lovely. And we decided, well, why not go somewhere wider, see the world. So in 2013, our first stop was, out of all places, Thailand. So we decided, go and have the world across. And we ended up in Chiang Mai, which is the, as they call it, digital nomad capital. We stayed there for half a year, learned a lot. And since then, we're just traveling around the world.
That sounds like an amazing life, from living the American dream, as everyone says, to living your own dreams, to living this digital nomad lifestyle, becoming location independent, and also moving all over the world. With you had a small child back then too when you started doing this, right?
No, actually, she was. We had a child. Sorry for interrupting you, but we had a child when we were very young, and we
Oh, okay.
are not so young anymore. I mean, like young at heart, obviously. But I think actually part of our lifestyle, the idea that we can afford this lifestyle, is because actually our child is a grown-up adult right now, and she lives on her own.
That's a good thing. Yeah, now you have nothing to keep you there, technically.
Yeah, and probably it was a part of this decision, because I would surely, I know that some people, they do travel with children, and I admire them for that full-heartedly, But I'm not sure, homeschooling, I'm not sure if I can do it myself.
How did you and your husband take the first steps? Why did you do this? How did you decide to be location independent and to take your life and just uproot it and start traveling the world? What were the first steps that you did in order to accomplish this dream that you had?
Okay, so first step would be, and probably people usually sort of skip it or forget about it, is it's a lot of research. Because I remember that actually fairly clearly, that this idea, we actually got this idea out of all places from Reddit, just reading. Somebody posted, hey, I'm digital nomad. And I was, wow, that's interesting. What is that? What is nomad? That's sort of understandable. What is digital nomad? And remember, it was actually about 9 years ago. Then first time we sort of noticed that. So it was not that common back then. So we did actually quite a lot of research about, what's involved, what are the pitfalls, and what is good, what is bad. Because there are some very fine points about, like, for example, when you're traveling, what do you do with your finances? How do you handle your banking? What do you do with, and this is actually pure Americans, what do you do with your health insurance? So it's a lot of research went into that, which was interesting, but a bit tedious. Though I do like to do research, so that was not that bad. And then we sold the house, as it probably goes with all these stories. Sold the house, sold all our possessions, and we ended up with literally by now we have 3 bags, because we discovered that we have a lot of electronics which we need to carry with us. So our luggage grew from 2 to 3 bags. But essentially just put everything in these bags, and that's how it all started. Okay, well, again, to be fair, after we sold the house and we rented a place for a while, like I said, you need to figure out your financial situation. You need to figure out what your, address would be, because at least in the United States, you have to have some address. So it was this figuring out how to do that. So I would say that between the time when we started thinking about it, it took probably half a year to organize everything. It was not that fast, actually.
Yeah, I mean, and there's also a lot of things that you don't realize that you need to think about. One of the things you mentioned is how to do banking when you're international, and health insurance, of course, especially for Americans. That's really important. There's so many little details that you didn't think about and you took for granted when you're in your own country that you really have to start thinking about when you're traveling abroad. Like, for example, your visas and all of those things. And we're also going to give you more details on all of these things during our extended interview with Elena, because we're going to talk about how to do slow travel. So I'm really excited to dive deeper into this also with you, Elena. Now, when you were starting to travel with your husband and you're doing traveling full time, what was the biggest setback that you guys encountered, and how did you usually handle it?
Interestingly enough, when we just started back again, like I said, it was 7 years ago, the biggest setback was the quality of the internet. Because for us, we do work on the road, so we couldn't afford long interruptions with internet. And again, for example, back in Chiang Mai, there were some issues with reliability. Sometimes it just, you wake up in the morning and you don't have internet connection, and I have a meeting, and I cannot even, apologize that it won't happen just because internet doesn't work. And even going to your nearest cafe, where they're saying that there is a Wi-Fi, but it still doesn't, it's not working. So interestingly enough, it was not about, just feeling uncomfortable in a new environment or climate or something. It was just one particular thing. It was internet connection. With years, it got better. And right now, it's a huge difference. We don't have any issues, no matter where we're going. That's fine.
So, Elena, let's go to your current business right now and your current job. You and your husband are consultants. So can you give us a little bit more information on exactly what it is that you guys do and how you were able to transition that into digital nomadism with this career that you have?
Luckily for us, we are both in tech field. So these kind of professions are meant for digital nomads, like software development or social media management, marketing. With some clients, they felt that if you will be on site, it's better. I don't see it anymore. I think that actually changed in the past 5 years. Companies and clients are much more comfortable with, having meetings, virtual meetings, Skype, Hangouts, Google Hangouts are pretty much common. So this was And I would say that probably we, again, got lucky that with our clients, we didn't have, they were fine with, well, location doesn't matter. As soon as you can finish and you can deliver what you promised, it was fine. Eventually, with years passing by, we ended up with just a very few clients. We've been selective with what we're doing. It comes to what is our goal. And our goal, we decided that we do love to travel, and and we both thinking that we will be traveling as long as we can. So our goal is not to become a millionaire, if you will, but to actually have enough income to cover our expenses, travel expenses, so we can we can have our lifestyle. And for that, we can be selective with clients, so we can drop some and choose the ones who we are comfortable with. So, but again, I guess every person just making his or her own choices. I do know that some people, some digital nomads actually, they want to grow their wealth. So that's probably a bit different story.
Was it really difficult for you to find a client, especially when you're on the road? I'm sure you amassed clients before you started traveling, but what about when you're on the road? How do you get new clients and make sure that you keep them, especially with the time difference or maybe communication issues?
Actually, that's a very good point because I forgot to. We actually built our client base back in the day when we just started our business. Again, probably it's good old networking. But interestingly enough, we continue with the pool of people with whom we work. Interestingly enough, we chose, again, not to expand our business, but because we want to keep it small, just two of us. You cannot buy it too much. And this is, again, goes back to because we decided that what we need with our income, we need to cover our expenses. And what we're doing is just to sustain us with our lifestyle. If in the future we may change it, though I don't see why, and decide to grow our client base, that would be different. But for now, we just working with the pool of people who we chose some time ago.
Now, Elena, you have been doing this for quite some time, and I'm sure you've met a lot of people. What has been the worst advice that you have ever received?
Actually, interestingly enough, that would be when I was still working full time. One of my bosses back then, he really wanted me to grow with, go into executive world to become a more traditional way of becoming manager and eventually becoming executive. And I realized that I just don't like it. I tried to do it for a while, and actually, that was the reason why I, at some point, just, well, enough is enough. It's probably a bit unusual for Americans because they generally, my impression that work is everything. Mm-hmm. And just at some point, I want to see the world. Work is not really everything. And actually, I can tell you that it's interesting. Again, with, for example, with our clients, I see that, people in Australia, they don't work 12 hours per day. They work hard, but also there is a life outside. Same with Sweden, Portugal, with very many countries which I saw. It's just a different take on what is important in your life. So I'm glad that I didn't follow this advice of going this usual path, corporate path, if you will.
And it's different for everybody, and it definitely takes a different type of mentality to become a digital nomad because you become your own boss and there's more responsibility, even though you have more freedom, but you also create more responsibilities for yourself and most likely working twice the amount of hours sometimes that you used to do in your day job.
Yes, actually, being a digital nomad requires a lot of discipline. If you lack this self-discipline, then I believe that you just cannot succeed because it's just so easy to, get off your working track doing something else. And that usually leads to some unpleasant consequences. So this is definitely, you work hard, but if you don't have this path, you don't see this path, that's becoming even more difficult.
Now, Elena, how were you able to create income from the start, and how do you continue to create income today?
Actually, these days our roles changed a bit. Slowly, my husband still continuing software development. He's doing it full time as when we started. I'm still this, operations of our small company, but on top of that, I'm moved more into travel planning, just because traveling, having a nomadic lifestyle, as you might imagine, requires a lot of planning, research. You need to do logistics, and obviously we don't have travel agent, just because you cannot have it when you just jumping around the world. So I'm sort of like this travel agent capacity. So I moved more into travel related tasks, and also writing about our travel stories, our advice on our blog. So this is more my side of the business right now.
Now, let's fast forward to 20 years from now, and you're looking back at your life. What legacy would you like to leave, and what do you want to be remembered for?
I would like, and I'm promoting heavily, or started promoting heavily, what I call slow travel. Traveling around the world, I see how much tourism actually ruins the world, if you will. Not to make it too dramatic, obviously, it's not like climate change, but unfortunately, and I want to explain what I see. What's the difference between tourism and slow travel, for example? Essentially, with tourism, people come into whatever, any place. They stay there just for a day, maybe for a week. They just there to make a picture and to come back to their home and say to their friends, oh, I went to Rome, oh, I went to Kenya. And they are not really caring about environment or caring about local people or trying to understand that cultural differences sometimes. And it does create a lot of tensions. A very good example, actually, we spent 3 months in Japan, and we lived in a small town, not in a touristy location. And I could see how I can understand actually why some Japanese people, they don't like tourists, just because they are such different cultures, and Westerners sometimes they just trump in without consideration. So I guess what I want to leave as a legacy is to teach people that you need to be careful. You need to travel is wonderful. You have to do it, but you need to do it wisely. You need to be smart about what you do, and you need to learn instead of just visiting. You need to learn. That would be, epitome of what slow travel is.
We see it so much more with people because, like you said, people just want to take photos for Instagram and social media, and they don't really take advantage of what they can learn from the people and the culture. And it's not just about taking that pretty photo, but really learning about the culture itself and what the place is really about. And if you're just there to do that, then you might as well just stay home and Photoshop yourself if you're not going to experience the place firsthand. Because honestly, for me, the beauty about traveling is not just the places that you see, but also the culture and the people that you experience and being outside of your own little world.
And it's interesting. In Beirut, near Beirut, there is famous caves. Taking any camera or phone with you. So when you get inside, I can tell you, first probably a couple minutes, it's a really weird experience. I guess we just got so used to our phones, smartphones or cameras. You feel like naked, literally. But after that, it's actually fantastic because nothing distracts you, and you are just feel how wonderful nature is, because it's absolutely fantastic experience. It's wonderful, beautiful cave, and because you're not distracted with just taking pictures every second, It's absolutely different experience, which I can imagine how people probably who traveled, I don't know, actually even whatever, 30 years ago, they had very different experience. They could concentrate on whatever they were seeing. And this is what this lack of technology with you actually allows you to appreciate. So it's actually probably more places needs to somehow do it.
And it's a different experience when you're actually experiencing the place without a camera and really seeing it with your own eyes, not just from the lens. That's really special. And it's interesting that we have to explain this to ourselves again, because a few years back, we didn't have to. We just experienced life. And now it seems like we can't do it without a camera or our phone with us.
Yeah, it seems like everybody right now, they just glued to their whatever they have, usually smartphones, and just cannot part with them.
And I think that's why I like podcasts, because you really have to listen, not just watch.
It's true. Actually, you have to concentrate. This is what we. Yeah, actually, that's one of these things which amuses me. That right now our attention span is so short that with visiting any website, it's literally just 5-6 seconds, and then just go into the next and next and next. It's such a short period of time. People really need to go back to ability to concentrate.
So now, Elena, is there any question that you wish people asked you more of?
Well, I guess the question probably which people need to ask, well, probably not me, but themselves before they jump into this. What's your goal when you go into this? What do you want to achieve? Because quite often I see, and sometimes it amuses me, but it seems like it's fairly general description of digital nomad is person might travel half the world and end up in completely new location, but some people tend to create this community and just stay within community. It's probably more comfortable. You have somewhere in Thailand, in Chiang Mai, you have a group of people who speak English and who have more or less similar cultural traits. So there is no need to go outside to be curious. And I think that this is actually, it's not good. What's the point of traveling far away to essentially end up in the same environment? You can stay at home.
That is very true. I mean, you already took that leap to go outside of your hometown. Now you're traveling. Why should you stay in that one specific group of people? It's all about experiencing new things. Even if it's slow going, you should at least try. And it's always going out of our comfort zones that will lead us to more experiences and more chances in our life. And that's the really exciting part of all of this.
Yes, that's the point. Because I saw it sometimes, and you stay in Vietnam and you see the same people. You move to, I don't know, to Hong, and again, oh hi, it's again the same faces. Well, you need to break out of that, and you need to there are way more things than just having a beer at some pub. You can go outside and you can learn like what's the difference between Chinese culture and Vietnamese culture, even why food is different.
Elena, if our listeners want to know more about you, where can they find you?
Travelandbytes.com. I'm always there. There are some actually what we discussed today, some topics I covered there, and well, I'm still covering and adding more and more. But yeah, it's probably the best thing is travelandbytes.com, and there is a contact form there, so I'm always reachable there. We're also on social media, and if I would love if they want to follow us on Twitter, where I'm fairly active. On Instagram, I used to be very active, but it seems to be that somehow I got disappointed with Instagram. It just became.
I think a lot of us are.
Yeah, I'm happy that you understand me. It seems like these polished pictures of myself against some wonderful attraction is a bit, it needs to be a bit deeper than that.
For sure. Thank you so much, Elena, for speaking with us today. And I am really looking forward to checking out more of your adventures on your website. And we're also going to put a link to that on the website. Thank you, Elena.
Thank you, Debbie. It was wonderful. Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed this interview with Elena. Make sure to visit theoffbeatlife.com. Again, that's theoffbeatlife.com to get the extended interview with Elena where she shares how to do slow travel full time.